Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine holding a tiny copper-colored coin in your hand, just 1 cent, the smallest unit of American currency, something that most people might overlook or toss into a jar on a dresser, a cup holder in the car, or maybe even the floor of a convenience store. Now imagine if I told you that a particular version of this very coin, struck in 1990 at the Denver Mint, could be worth not $1, not $100, not even $1,000 or $1,000,000, but a staggering $210 million in today's collector market under the right circumstances. That sounds unbelievable, almost too good to be true, but the story of the 1990 penny, officially known as the 1990 Lincoln cent, is full of mystery, fascination, and hidden value that makes even seasoned coin collectors stop and take notice. To understand why this little piece of metal can command such attention, we need to go deep into its design, its history, its composition, the world of mint errors, and the cultural significance that gives rise to astronomical values in the numismatic marketplace. The 1990 Lincoln cent was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the 4 active United States mints at the time, alongside Philadelphia, San Francisco, and West Point. The D mint mark below the date on the obverse identifies it as a Denver issue. This mint mark is a small but vital detail, because mint marks allow collectors to track where a coin was struck and how many were produced, and in the world of coin collecting, rarity and mint origin can mean everything. The coin itself belongs to the Lincoln cent series, which began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first regular-issue U.S. coin to depict a real historical figure instead of an allegorical representation of liberty. That was a major shift in American coinage tradition, and it cemented Lincoln's image as one of the most enduring and respected designs in the entire history of U.S. currency. The design of the 1990 cent, like all Lincoln cents from 1959 through 2008, features the bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. This portrait was originally created by Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian-born sculptor whose initials, VDB, became famously controversial when they appeared too prominently on the 1909 issue, causing a public uproar that forced the mint to remove them. Decades later, the initials were restored discreetly on Lincoln's shoulder, where they remain today. Lincoln's portrait on the 1990 D is crisp, dignified, and instantly recognizable, showing him facing to the right, with the word, Liberty, to his left, the date, 1990, to his right, and the tiny D mint mark just beneath the date. Above his head runs the national motto, In God We Trust, an inscription that has appeared on U.S. coins for over a century. On the reverse of the 1990 cent, you'll find the famous Lincoln Memorial design, which replaced the original wheat ears reverse in 1959, coinciding with the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Designed by Frank Gasparo, the Lincoln Memorial reverse is remarkable because if you look closely, right in the middle between the columns, you can actually see a tiny representation of the seated statue of Lincoln, making it a coin that shows both sides of the same man, his face on the obverse, his statue on the reverse. Above the memorial runs the inscription, United States of America. Beneath it the denomination, 1 cent, and arched above the memorial itself is the motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one. Physically, the coin has a diameter of 19 millimeters and a weight of 2.5 grams, reflecting a significant change that occurred in 1982 when the mint switched from the traditional solid bronze composition of 95% copper to a cheaper copper-plated zinc composition due to rising copper prices. By 1990, the Lincoln cent was struck on planchets that were primarily zinc with only a thin copper plating, giving them their familiar appearance while drastically reducing production costs. This also means that if the copper plating is damaged or wears off, the silvery-colored zinc beneath can be seen, leading many casual observers to mistake these coins for errors when in fact it's simply the natural exposure of the core metal. Now, here's where things start to get intriguing. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins in 1990. By sheer numbers alone, the 1990 D penny should not be rare. It was a workhorse coin, part of the billions produced every year to keep America's economy flowing, and countless examples still circulate today. If you check your pocket change, there's a decent chance you might come across a 1990 D cent without even realizing it. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity does not always come from the overall number minted. Sometimes it comes from errors, unique variations, or the condition of the coin itself. And in the case of the 1990 D, there are certain examples that stand out as incredibly valuable, commanding prices that defy logic. When people talk about the 1990 D penny being worth millions, they're often referring to spectacular mint errors or specimens that exist in near-perfect condition. For instance, proof coins of that year, which are specially struck for collectors at the San Francisco Mint, were supposed to bear the S mint mark. Yet a small number of 1990 proof cents were struck without a mint mark at all, creating one of the most famous modern rarities. Though this is technically a San Francisco issue, the story of the missing mint mark sometimes gets confused with the Denver coin, leading to wild rumors of 1990 D cents worth fortunes. And then there are the ultra-high-grade examples certified by grading companies like PCGS or NGC, coins that have survived in pristine, flawless condition without scratches, blemishes, or wear. These top pop coins, as collectors call them, can sell for astonishing amounts because they are the best of the best in a sea of billions. The rumor of a 1990 D penny being worth $210 million takes this fascination to another level entirely. While no coin has ever officially sold for that exact figure, the legend persists because rare coins have indeed brought mind-blowing prices at auction. The 1933 Double Eagle, for example, sold for nearly $19 million in 2021. Other cents, such as the 1943 Bronze Lincoln cent or the 1955 Double Die Obverse cent, have fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars. When collectors imagine what could happen if a one-of-a-kind 1990 D cent with an extraordinary error or unique provenance were to surface, the sky's the limit, and that's how a number like $210 million enters the conversation. It becomes a symbol of ultimate rarity, the kind of treasure that could turn a penny into a fortune beyond imagination. So what does this mean for the average person who finds a 1990 D penny in their change? Should you immediately assume you're holding a multi-million-dollar artifact? The answer is no, not necessarily. But it does mean that every coin deserves a closer look. In numismatics, the study and collection of coins, knowledge is power, and spotting details that others miss can transform a common cent into a life-changing discovery. Weight, composition, strike quality, and mintmark placement all matter. Sometimes a coin might be double-struck, off-center, struck on the wrong planchet, or bear a die clash, all of which can add value. Other times, the coin's condition alone, preserved as though it just left the mint yesterday, can be enough to push it into the stratosphere of value. This is just the beginning of the story. The 1990 D penny is not just a coin, it's a symbol of how something small and ordinary can hide within it extraordinary potential. A reminder that hidden treasures often sit right under our noses, waiting for the right eye to recognize their worth. As we peel back more layers of history, era varieties, market trends, and collector psychology, you'll see why the legend of the 1990 D cent continues to captivate both experts and casual enthusiasts alike. Now let's take this story further, because while the surface details of the 1990 D penny are fascinating, the real drama begins when we explore the mistakes, the accidents, and the anomalies that make some coins worth thousands, millions, and in legendary cases, values so high that they almost defy reality. The truth about coins is this: the United States Mint, despite its precision and technology, is still a human and mechanical operation, and whenever you have humans and machines working at high speed, producing billions of pieces a year, mistakes will happen. And those mistakes, known as mint errors, are often the very lifeblood of the numismatic market. So, what kinds of errors might exist for the 1990 penny? One of the most dramatic possibilities is the double die. This happens when the coin's die, the metal piece that stamps the design, is accidentally engraved twice at slightly different angles or positions. When a coin is struck with such a die, it shows doubling on the letters, numbers, or images, creating a ghostly effect that sharp-eyed collectors immediately recognize. Some double die cents, like the famous 1955 double die, sell for tens of thousands of dollars because of how striking the error is. If a 1990 penny were to show such doubling, especially on key areas like the date or the motto, "In God We Trust," its value could skyrocket. Another error type is the off-center strike, where the coin is not properly aligned when struck, resulting in part of the design being missing or shifted. The more dramatic the off-center, the higher the value, especially if it still shows the full date and mint mark. Imagine a 1990 penny with Lincoln's face pushed so far to the side that only half of him is visible. That's the kind of error that collectors love because it's visually dramatic and unmistakably rare. Then there are wrong planchet errors, which occur when the blank metal disc used to strike the coin is actually intended for another denomination. This could result in a penny struck on a dime planchet, making it smaller and lighter, or even on a foreign coin planchet, since the U.S. Mint has occasionally struck coins for other countries. A 1990 penny struck on the wrong metal could be an absolute showstopper at auction, because not only would it be rare, but it would also raise fascinating questions about how such a mistake slipped through the mint's quality control. Die clashes are another collector favorite. This happens when the dies strike each other without a planchet between them, transferring parts of the design from one die onto the other. Later, when coins are struck with these damaged dies, they show ghostly images of the reverse design on the obverse or vice versa. For a 1990 that could mean faint outlines of the Lincoln Memorial appearing across Lincoln's face, a strange and haunting visual that would make any collector stop and stare. But perhaps the most legendary kind of error is the transitional error, where a coin is struck using the wrong composition from a previous or future year. For example, in 1943, when pennies were supposed to be made of steel due to World War II copper shortages, a few were mistakenly struck in bronze, and those coins are now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Similarly, a 1990 struck on a bronze planchet instead of the standard copper-plated zinc would be an incredible rarity, instantly attracting worldwide attention. This is where the myth of the $210 million penny really comes into play. You see, in the numismatic world, value is not just about metal or face value. It's about rarity, condition, demand, and sometimes pure legend. When people hear that a single coin sold for millions, like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, the imagination takes over. What if a 1990 penny with the right combination of error, condition, and story came to market? Could it fetch an astronomical price, perhaps even hundreds of millions? While no auction has ever confirmed such a sale, the idea itself becomes part of the coin's mythology. And in collecting, mythology can be as powerful as fact. Now let's talk about condition, because condition is king in numismatics. A 1990 penny pulled from circulation with scratches, dents, or where might only be worth face value or a few cents to a collector. But the same coin, if it somehow survived in pristine condition, untouched by human hands, could be worth hundreds or thousands. This is where professional grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, come in. They evaluate coins under magnification, assign them a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and encapsulate them in protective holders. A grade of MS 70, meaning mint state 70, is absolute perfection, with no flaws visible even under 5x magnification. Achieving that grade is nearly impossible, especially for coins that were mass-produced for everyday use. If a 1990 penny were to achieve an MS 70 grade, it could sell for staggering amounts simply because of its perfection in a world of billions of imperfect coins. Collectors chase these high-grade coins because they represent the pinnacle of the hobby. Owning the finest known example of a common coin turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. Imagine the pride of saying, out of hundreds of millions of 1990 pennies, this one right here is the absolute best. That's the kind of prestige that drives collectors to bid astronomical sums. And when you add the spice of rumors, whispers of a unique error, an undiscovered variety, or a coin with a mysterious backstory, the value can climb into the realm of fantasy. But why do people believe in such fantastical numbers like $210 million? Part of the answer lies in human psychology. We love treasure stories. From pirate gold to lost cities of wealth, humanity is wired to dream about finding riches where no one else is looking. A penny worth hundreds of millions fits right into that archetype. It transforms a mundane object into a talisman of fortune. Even if it's exaggerated, the very possibility keeps the story alive, and in the digital age, stories spread faster than ever. One viral headline, one social media post claiming a penny sold for $210 million, and suddenly millions of people are checking their change jars, dreaming of becoming overnight millionaires. This brings us to the modern collector's market. Coins like the 1990 exist in a strange intersection between history, art, and investment. To some, they are simply nostalgic objects, a way to connect with childhood memories of searching through pocket change. To others, they are serious investments, assets that can appreciate in value and serve as a hedge against inflation. And to yet another group, they are treasure hunts, the thrill of the chase, the dream of finding that one in a billion coin that makes headlines. The 1990 penny, with its combination of huge mintage, potential errors, and viral myths, is a perfect storm for this kind of fascination. And let's not forget the design's symbolism. Abraham Lincoln is not just another historical figure. He is a towering presence in American history, a symbol of unity, freedom, and leadership during one of the nation's darkest hours. To hold a coin with his image is to hold a piece of that legacy. And when collectors bid high for a Lincoln cent, they are also bidding for a tangible connection to that story. That emotional weight adds another layer to the value, making the coin more than just metal, more than just currency. It becomes a piece of living history. So when you hear someone say the 1990 penny could be worth $210 million, it's not just about the coin itself. It's about the story, the errors, the condition, the market, the psychology, and the mythology all wrapped into one. It's about a culture that loves to dream big, that loves the idea that hidden riches might be lurking in the smallest, most overlooked places. And it's about a coin that, despite being common on the surface, carries within it the potential for greatness if circumstances align. When we start peeling back the layers of the 1990 penny, one of the most important things to understand is the role of myth versus reality in the coin world. On one hand, we have hard data, mintage figures, certified populations, auction records. On the other hand, we have stories, rumors passed down from one collector to another, amplified through word of mouth, newspaper clippings, And now, viral social media posts. And the 1990D has become one of the coins most affected by this duality. Because while the vast majority of them are only worth face value or perhaps a few dollars in high grade, the legend of a single coin being worth $210 million persists like a modern-day treasure tale. To understand why this happens, we need to look at other coins that have broken records in the past. One of the most famous examples is the 1933 Double Eagle, a $20 gold piece that was never officially released for circulation due to changes in U.S. monetary policy during the Great Depression. A small handful escaped destruction, and for decades they were considered illegal to own. But in 2002, one specimen was legally sold at auction for nearly $7.6 million, and in 2021, another example broke the record at nearly $19 million. That kind of story fuels the imagination. If a coin intended to be destroyed can become one of the most expensive objects in the world, why couldn't a 1990D penny with the right era or condition someday achieve the same? Another relevant comparison is the 1943 bronze Lincoln cent. In 1943, due to wartime copper shortages, the mint switched to steel for pennies. But a few bronze planchets left over from 1942 were accidentally struck, creating one of the most legendary errors in U.S. coinage. These 1943 bronze cents have sold for hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million in top condition. Then there's the 1955 double die cent, instantly recognizable with its dramatic doubling on the date and motto. That coin has been a cornerstone of collector dreams for decades, often selling for tens of thousands. What these coins all share is a blend of rarity, drama, and story. They capture attention not just because of their metal content or design, but because of the narrative attached to them, a narrative of accidents, survival, and discovery. And the 1990D penny fits right into this pattern. While it may not yet have a universally recognized, documented error of that magnitude, the possibility that such a coin could exist is enough to keep the dream alive. With billions struck, even a single extraordinary mistake slipping through could change the landscape of modern coin collecting. Now let's talk about auctions, because this is where myths often intersect with reality. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly handle rare coins, and when an exceptional Lincoln cent comes across the block, it can make headlines. For instance, top-graded 1990D pennies in mint state 68 or 69 have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, far beyond their 1-cent face value. To the casual observer, that might not sound like much, but to a serious collector, it's a testament to how condition can elevate even a modern coin. Imagine paying $2,500 for a coin you could theoretically find in pocket change. That's the power of grade. But then come the online stories. Articles, blog posts, YouTube videos, and social media memes often exaggerate or misunderstand these sales. A headline might scream, 1990D penny sells for $2 million, when in reality it was a different coin entirely, perhaps the 1990 NOS proof cent, a completely separate issue from San Francisco. These confusions fuel the myth, because the average person doesn't distinguish between a Denver circulation strike and a San Francisco proof. They just see the date, 1990, and the word, penny, and suddenly they believe any 1990D in their change jar could be a life-changing fortune. And that's the beauty and the curse of coin collecting in the internet age. Information spreads faster than ever, but so does misinformation. One viral TikTok, one poorly researched article, and the legend grows. Before long, the idea of a $210 million penny becomes a fixture of online treasure hunting culture, repeated endlessly by people who may not even collect coins but love the thrill of the story. But let's pause and think critically for a moment. Could a 1990 penny actually sell for $210 million? On the surface, it seems impossible. After all, the most expensive coins in history, like the 1933 Double Eagle at $19 million or the 1794 Flowing Hair dollar at $10 million, haven't come close to that figure. For a penny to leap beyond them into nine-figure territory, it would need to be truly unique, perhaps a one-of-a-kind transitional error, struck on the wrong metal, in perfect condition, with impeccable provenance and perhaps even a historical twist. Maybe if it were the only known 1990 struck in solid gold by mistake, or if it had been presented to a president and lost for decades, then maybe, just maybe, it could approach such a staggering sum. Yet the fact that people even talk about it shows how coins, despite being everyday objects, live in a space of imagination and possibility. Unlike a painting or a diamond, which are clearly luxury objects, a penny is universal. Everyone has seen one, touched one, maybe even ignored one on the ground. The idea that something so common could hide unimaginable wealth is irresistible. It democratizes the dream of treasure hunting, making everyone feel like they could stumble into fortune simply by looking a little closer. That's why videos and stories about valuable pennies are so wildly popular online. They tap into a universal desire for hidden riches. And let's not forget the emotional layer. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying history, nostalgia, and personal connection. A 1990 penny might remind someone of being a child in the early 1990s, saving change for candy or video games. For others, it might symbolize a link to their parents or grandparents who taught them to check their coins carefully. When someone pays thousands for a 1990 in pristine condition, part of what they're buying is that emotional resonance, the story it tells them personally. That's why prices can sometimes seem irrational, because in the world of collecting, rationality and passion dance together, often with passion leading the way. So when we think of the 1990 penny's place in history, we have to recognize it as more than just a coin. It's a cultural phenomenon, a case study in how myths and facts blur together, how the dream of treasure can elevate an ordinary object into something extraordinary. The $210 million number may be mythical, but the fascination it represents is very real. It's proof that, when we talk about the 1990 penny and its supposed astronomical value, we can't ignore the psychology that drives people to believe in such possibilities. Human beings have always been drawn to treasure hunts, whether it was prospectors panning for gold in the 1800s, adventurers searching for lost civilizations, or everyday people buying lottery tickets today. The thrill of maybe, the whisper of possibility, is what keeps the dream alive. A penny in your pocket seems like the least valuable object imaginable, and yet, with just the right twist of fate, it could be transformed into a fortune beyond imagination. That tension between worthlessness and pricelessness is part of what makes stories like the $210 million penny so powerful. Coin hoarding has been a part of human behavior for centuries. People set aside coins because they believe they might be special, because they like the way they look, or because someone once told them a certain year might be valuable. In the case of the 1990 penny, this has created entire jars, boxes, and collections of coins sitting in basements, attics, and dresser drawers all across the country. Millions of people are unknowingly participating in a kind of collective treasure hunt, where each person is waiting for that magical moment when they discover their little copper-plated disc is not just a penny but a fortune. This is where grading population reports come into play. Services like PCGS and NGC don't just grade coins. They also track how many examples of each coin exist at each grade level. These reports, known as POP reports, are like treasure maps for collectors. If a 1990 penny has hundreds of examples graded MS65 but only a handful in MS69, then the MS-69 becomes exponentially more valuable, even though it's the same coin by design and composition. It's the scarcity within the scarcity that drives prices up. And when a coin sits at the very top, the single finest known example, it can command nearly any price the market will bear, because every top collector wants the best, and there can only be one best. This idea fuels the obsession many people have with searching through change or rolls of pennies from the bank. Most of the coins they find will be ordinary, but the hope of finding that one extraordinary piece keeps them going. It's the same psychology that makes people play slot machines, scratch lottery tickets, or hunt for rare baseball cards. The odds are slim, but the dream is intoxicating. And unlike the lottery, searching through coins feels more tangible, more within reach, because the coins are already in your hands, and all it takes is a sharp eye to spot a potential rarity. Another factor is the power of storytelling. When one person discovers a valuable coin, the story spreads like wildfire. News outlets pick it up, videos are made, articles circulate, and suddenly everyone wants to know if their pennies could be worth a fortune too. The more sensational the headline, the faster it spreads. 1990 penny sells for $210 million. Might not be factually accurate, but it captures attention in a way that 1990 penny in high grade worth $3,000 never could. And in today's world, where attention is the most valuable commodity, those sensational stories are what dominate. The myth of the $210 million penny persists because it combines all of these psychological triggers. It's about rarity, it's about treasure, it's about the hope of turning nothing into everything. Even if no such penny has ever sold for that figure, the fact that people believe it could happen is enough to keep the legend alive. And once a legend takes hold, it becomes self-sustaining. Each retelling adds a layer of possibility. Each new video or article reinforces the dream, and soon the story becomes bigger than the coin itself. Collectors know that reality is more nuanced. They understand that while the 1990 penny can indeed be valuable in the right condition or with the right error, it's unlikely to break world records anytime soon. But they also know that the market is unpredictable, that a coin dismissed as ordinary today can become legendary tomorrow if new information comes to light. And that's why serious collectors never completely dismiss these stories. They approach them with skepticism, yes, but also with curiosity, because the history of coin collecting is filled with surprises. Think about the first person who found a 1943 bronze cent. To most people, it was just another penny. To the discoverer, it was a shocking anomaly. At the time, no one could have predicted that decades later it would sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The same could be true for a 1990D. Somewhere out there, maybe in a bankroll, a forgotten jar, or a dusty old box, could be a coin with an error so dramatic, so unique, that it changes the narrative completely. And if that coin were to surface and go to auction, who's to say how high the bidding could go? Maybe not $210 million, but in the world of collecting, impossible has a way of becoming possible. This is why people keep searching, why the fascination never dies. Each penny becomes a ticket in a silent lottery, a chance at discovering something extraordinary. The 1990D is the perfect symbol of this hunt, because it's common enough to be everywhere, and yet shrouded in enough myth to feel like it could be the key to unimaginable wealth. It's the balance of accessibility and mystery that makes it irresistible. And the truth is, even if you never find that $210 million jackpot, the process of searching has its own rewards. It teaches patience, sharpens observation, connects you with history, and brings you into a community of people who share the same passion. For many collectors, the thrill of the hunt is as valuable as the coins themselves. The 1990 penny, with its legends and possibilities, is simply the spark that ignites that fire. When we shift the lens from the coin itself to the larger ecosystem that gives it value, we begin to see why the 1990 penny has become such a cultural phenomenon. The coin market isn't just about coins sitting in dusty collections, it's an entire economy built on dealers, auction houses, grading services, investors, and hobbyists, all interacting in ways that transform ordinary metal into items worth fortunes. And when you step back and look at the big picture, you begin to understand how a tiny 1-cent piece can be at the center of myths about $210 million. Let's start with coin dealers. These are the people who bridge the gap between collectors and the wider public. A dealer might buy coins from someone who found them in change, from estate sales, or from longtime collectors, and then resell them to customers looking for specific pieces. Dealers play a crucial role in setting prices because they're often the first point of contact when someone thinks they have a valuable coin. If you walked into a coin shop today with a 1990 penny, the dealer would likely examine it carefully, perhaps weigh it, check for errors, and determine its condition. Most would tell you it's common and worth very little unless it had extraordinary features, but every so often, a dealer is the first to recognize that a coin is something special, and from there the legend begins to grow. Then there are auction houses, the high-stakes arenas where the most valuable coins change hands. Firms like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Sotheby's have turned coin sales into global events, complete with glossy catalogs, live bidding, and headlines in mainstream media. Auctions are where records are broken, where one-of-a-kind coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 silver dollar set benchmarks that fuel the imagination of collectors everywhere. If a 1990 penny were ever to achieve a record-breaking price, it would almost certainly happen in one of these venues, because auctions pit wealthy collectors against one another in bidding wars that can drive prices far beyond what anyone thought possible. The psychology of auctions, where prestige, competition, and scarcity collide, creates an environment where myths are born and sustained. Grading companies are another essential piece of the puzzle. Services like PCGS and NGC don't just authenticate and grade coins, they create trust in the market. Before third-party grading became standard in the 1980s, coin values were much more subjective. One person's idea of mint state might be another's. About uncirculated. By providing an objective numerical grade, encapsulating the coin in tamper-proof plastic, and maintaining population reports, grading companies give buyers confidence that what they're purchasing is genuine and fairly evaluated. In the case of the 1990 penny, these services have documented thousands of examples, but only a handful in the highest grades. Those handfuls become the coins that command premium prices, and when word spreads that a coin is the finest known, demand spikes dramatically. Now let's talk about hype, because hype is the gasoline that fuels the engine of numismatics. Collectors are passionate people, and when they get excited about a particular coin, that excitement spreads. Dealers advertise it, auction houses highlight it, and grading companies promote the rarity of high-grade examples. Suddenly, a coin that once seemed ordinary becomes the center of attention. We've seen this happen with modern coins like the 2000-piece Sacagawea dollar with the Cheerios reverse, or the 1969 double die cent, which went from obscurity to headline status overnight when it was discovered. The 1990 penny benefits from the same dynamic. Once whispers began that it could be valuable, once stories spread online about a $210 million sale, the hype became self-perpetuating. Whether or not the stories are factual, they keep people engaged, keep people searching, and keep the legend alive. The market also feeds on cycles of rediscovery. Every few years, a coin once considered unremarkable comes back into focus because of new discoveries, new varieties, or viral stories. That's why you see waves of public interest in coins like the 2004 Wisconsin State Quarter with the extra leaf, or the 1972 double die cent. A single news article or YouTube video can ignite a frenzy, and suddenly millions of people are rifling through their change, hoping to strike it rich. The 1990 penny has entered this cycle of rediscovery, resurfacing again and again in stories that highlight its supposed astronomical value, each time capturing a new audience and expanding the myth. What's fascinating is that the coin itself hasn't changed. It's still the same 2.5 grams of copper-plated zinc, still bearing Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial. What changes is the perception of it. Value in numismatics isn't just about the object, it's about the story told around the object. A coin with no story is just money, but a coin with a legend is something entirely different. The 1990 penny has become more than a piece of currency. It's become a cultural icon, a symbol of possibility, a stand-in for the idea that treasures hide in plain sight. The culture of collecting thrives on these icons. Just as the 1909 SVDB penny, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, or the 1894 S Barber dime are touchstones in the hobby, the 1990 penny is fast becoming one of those modern legends that everyone knows about, even if they've never actually seen a valuable one in person. It's the coin people talk about at family gatherings, the one parents mention to their kids when handing over spare change, the one that pops up in viral listicles and videos. That cultural presence gives it a life of its own, independent of its actual market value. And this is where things get truly interesting, because once a coin reaches that status, it can never really go back to being ordinary. The 1990 penny, whether worth a penny, $1,000, or someday much more, will always carry with it the aura of its legend. Every time someone stumbles across one in their change, they'll think of the stories, the rumors, the what-ifs. And that spark of curiosity is what keeps the hobby of coin collecting alive. It turns the mundane into the extraordinary, the forgotten into the unforgettable. So when we ask why a 1990 penny could ever be valued at 210, pennies are the most humble of all coins, yet they carry the heaviest load when it comes to myths of hidden fortune. Think about it, dimes, quarters, and half dollars have their own rarities, but it's always the penny that captures the public imagination. Maybe it's because pennies are everywhere, in jars, on sidewalks, in desk drawers, in the bottom of purses. Everyone has access to them, which means everyone has access to the dream. And unlike larger coins that might be hoarded or spent less frequently, pennies pass through millions of hands every day, giving every person the chance to stumble upon something extraordinary. The 1990 penny fits perfectly into this cultural obsession, because it blends accessibility with mystery. Anyone can find one, but almost no one knows how to tell whether theirs is the jackpot. Stories of people discovering valuable coins in everyday life only fuel this obsession. There are countless accounts of someone pulling a coin from circulation, not realizing its importance, and later discovering it was worth a small fortune. A man once found a 1943 bronze cent in his lunch change. Decades later, that coin was valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another family inherited a jar of coins and later realized one of them was a rare 1913 Liberty Head nickel, one of only 5 known, worth millions. These stories are rare, yes, but they are real, and they ignite the imagination of millions of people who suddenly wonder if the same could happen to them. The media loves these stories because they're irresistible to audiences. Headlines about someone finding a penny worth thousands or millions are guaranteed to draw clicks, views, and attention. News anchors smile as they hold up a common-looking coin, marveling at the idea that something so ordinary could be worth so much. YouTube channels, TikTok creators, and bloggers amplify these stories, sometimes mixing fact with exaggeration, sometimes creating outright myths, but always spreading the core message: check your change, because you never know what you might have. The 1990 penny is a perfect candidate for this kind of amplification, because it's modern enough to be familiar, yet mysterious enough to feel like hidden treasure. But why does the dream of jackpot coins resonate so deeply? Part of it is psychological. Humans are drawn to the idea of hidden value, the thought that treasure could be hiding in plain sight. It's the same impulse that drives people to buy scratch-off lottery tickets or metal detectors, to dig for relics in backyards, or to hunt garage sales for antiques. We want to believe that the world still contains mysteries, that there are fortunes waiting to be uncovered if only we look closely enough. A penny worth $210 million is not just a coin, it's a symbol of hope, of possibility, of the idea that even the most overlooked things can hold unimaginable potential. There's also a nostalgic element. For many people, pennies connect to childhood memories, rolling coins with parents, searching through change jars, or being taught by a grandparent to always check the dates. The act of looking at coins becomes a ritual, a connection to family history, and when paired with the chance of finding a rare and valuable piece, it transforms into something magical. That's why so many people who don't even consider themselves collectors still save pennies. They may not know why, but deep down they're holding on to the hope that one day, one of those coins will be the key to a life-changing discovery. The internet has supercharged this obsession in ways that previous generations couldn't imagine. In the past, stories of valuable coins spread slowly, through hobby magazines or word of mouth. Today, a single viral video can convince millions of people to check their change within hours. Search engines fill with queries like, "Is my 1990 penny worth millions?" Online marketplaces see sudden spikes in listings as people rush to sell coins they believe are rare. Some of these listings are wishful thinking, with sellers asking outrageous prices for common coins. But the very act of listing reinforces the idea that there's money to be made, and the cycle continues. The cultural weight of pennies is also reinforced by superstitions and sayings. Find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck. That phrase has been passed down for generations, turning the penny into a token of fortune. Combine that with stories of rare pennies worth millions, and suddenly the superstition feels almost prophetic. Maybe that penny on the ground really could change your life. The 1990 fits perfectly into this mindset, because it's both common enough to be found and mysterious enough to inspire wonder. But behind all of this lies a deeper truth. The value of coins, like the value of art, is as much about perception as it is about substance. A painting is just canvas and paint until people agree it's a masterpiece. A penny is just copper-plated zinc until people believe it's a treasure. The $210 million number, whether true or not, taps into this truth. It doesn't matter if no one has actually paid that price. What matters is that people believe it could happen, and that belief transforms the 1990 penny into more than just a coin. It becomes a cultural symbol of hidden riches, a story that everyone can participate in by simply checking their pockets. And that's the key to its staying power. Myths fade quickly when they're inaccessible, but the 1990 penny is different. It's not locked away in a museum or held by a billionaire. It's out there, in circulation, in jars, in rolls, waiting. Anyone could find one. Anyone could be the lucky person who stumbles across the ultimate rarity. That open invitation is what keeps the legend alive, year after year, decade after decade. So when people talk about the 1990 penny being worth $210 million, they're not just talking about money. They're talking about possibility. They're talking about the dream of turning the smallest, most overlooked piece of currency into a life-changing fortune. They're talking about hope, imagination, and the enduring human love of treasure hunts. And in that sense, whether the number is real or not, the 1990 when we think about the 1990 penny, it's tempting to view it only through the lens of numismatics, as if it's simply a coin whose value is determined by rarity, condition, and market demand. But the truth is, it also represents a much larger story about money, history, and culture. The penny has been with us for more than 2 centuries, from the earliest large copper cents of the late 1700s to the modern zinc-based issues. Over that time, it has witnessed the transformation of the American economy, the rise and fall of industries, wars, technological revolutions, and cultural shifts. To hold a penny from 1990 is to hold a piece of that ongoing story. In 1990, America was in the final year of the Cold War. Technology was rapidly advancing with the dawn of the personal computer era, and the U.S. Mint was continuing its tradition of producing billions of coins to serve a growing population. Yet even then, questions were beginning to surface about the role of the penny in modern life. Inflation had reduced its purchasing power to almost nothing, and some argued that it no longer made sense to spend resources producing a coin that could barely buy anything. And yet, despite those arguments, the penny persisted, because it was familiar, because it was traditional, and because Americans weren't ready to part with it. That hesitation to let go of the penny is part of what gives coins like the 1990 their symbolic power today. As fewer people use cash and as the debate over eliminating the penny intensifies, these coins take on a new role. They're no longer just change in your pocket. They're reminders of an era when physical money mattered more, when every cent carried weight in everyday transactions. If the United States ever discontinues the penny, the coins from years like 1990 will instantly become historical artifacts, snapshots of a time when pennies still clinked in pockets and jars across the country. Economically, the penny also reflects broader truths about the value we assign to things. By 1990, the switch to zinc with a thin copper plating was well established, and the intrinsic metal value of a penny was less than a cent. In a purely material sense, the coin was worth less than its face value. But in a cultural sense, it was worth far more, because it carried the portrait of Lincoln, a figure whose legacy still shaped national identity, and because it remained a trusted unit of exchange. This tension between material worth and symbolic worth is at the heart of why coins like the 1990 can inspire legends of astronomical value. There's also the historical continuity to consider. The Lincoln cent had already been in production for over 80 years by the time the 1990 was struck, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Generations of Americans grew up with Lincoln pennies, and each New Year's issue became part of a vast lineage stretching back to 1909. The 1990 is just one link in that chain, but because of the stories surrounding it, it has emerged as one of the more talked about links. Collectors know that history isn't just about the oldest coins or the rarest designs. It's also about the stories that attach themselves to ordinary pieces, transforming them into touchstones for entire eras. As we move further into the digital age, where payments are made with phones and cards rather than coins and cash, the symbolism of physical money grows stronger. A penny in the hand feels different from numbers on a screen. It's tangible, weighty, real. And when that penny happens to be a 1990, the weight is magnified by the cultural stories attached to it. People begin to see it not just as a coin, but as a relic, a conversation piece, a possible treasure. And in a world where small change is disappearing, that sense of rarity only intensifies. Another dimension is generational. Older collectors remember when pennies still had meaningful purchasing power, when you could buy candy or gum with a handful of them. Younger collectors, by contrast, encounter pennies mostly as curiosities, objects that feel somewhat out of place in a world of debit cards and apps. For the younger generation, the 1990 penny and others like it are almost like fossils of an economic ecosystem that is slowly vanishing. And yet, because they are so abundant, they remain approachable, an entry point for anyone curious about coins, history, or hidden treasure. It's also important to realize that when a coin like the 1990D is rumored to be worth $210 million, it's not just about exaggeration or hype. It's about the symbolic act of assigning extraordinary value to something ordinary. Economists might scoff at such a number, but from a cultural perspective, it makes perfect sense. We live in a world where rare sneakers, digital images, or autographed memorabilia can command staggering prices. Why not a penny, especially one with a story, a legend, and the aura of possibility? In that sense, the 1990D penny mirrors broader trends in the economy of collectibles, where meaning and narrative often outweigh material cost. Looking ahead, the role of coins like the 1990D may only grow in significance. If the penny is eventually retired, these coins will be remembered not just as currency but as artifacts of an age that has passed. And among them, certain years will stand out more than others, not because of intrinsic rarity, but because of the stories that became attached to them. The 1990D is one of those years, and its legend will likely endure long after pennies themselves are gone from circulation. Humans are natural collectors. From seashells on the beach to trading cards, stamps, comic books, and coins, the instinct to gather, preserve, and cherish small objects runs deep in our psychology. Anthropologists have long observed that across cultures and across time, people assign value to tokens, charms, and symbols, often beyond their practical use. A stone tool may begin as a functional object but becomes ceremonial once it is polished and engraved. A simple bead may become a treasured heirloom because of the story attached to it. The same principle applies to coins, and nowhere is that clearer than with pennies like the 1990D. Part of this psychology stems from memory. Coins are time capsules, physical links to moments that otherwise slip away. A coin from 1990 carries not just the stamp date but also the context of that year, the music, the politics, the style of clothing, the headlines in the newspaper, the toys children played with, the technologies people used. Holding a 1990D penny can transport someone back to their youth, to when they bought a soda for under $1, or when they lined up coins to feed into an arcade machine. The coin becomes more than money, it becomes a bridge to the past. And when nostalgia mixes with scarcity, value rises. Another part of the psychology is the thrill of discovery. Humans are wired to feel excitement when they uncover something hidden or unexpected. It's the same thrill that drives archaeologists to dig, treasure hunters to search, and kids to look under couch cushions. When someone flips over a coin and notices the date or mint mark, there's a tiny spark of curiosity. Could this be the one? Could this be the rare find? That small moment of possibility is addictive, and it keeps people checking, searching, and collecting year after year. The 1990D penny is particularly powerful in this regard because its story has spread so widely. The idea that a common-looking coin could be worth $210 million injects every encounter with suspense, no matter how slim the odds. There's also the principle of control. In a world where so much feels unpredictable, jobs, markets, technology, even relationships, collecting gives people a sense of stability. Coins are tangible, unchanging, reliable. They can be organized, cataloged, displayed. They don't vanish like digital files or fluctuate wildly like stock prices. When someone builds a collection, they feel a sense of mastery over at least one small corner of the world. And when that collection contains a coin rumored to be worth millions, the sense of control merges with the dream of fortune, creating a powerful emotional bond. Social factors play a role as well. Collecting is not just a private hobby, it's also a way of connecting with others. Coin shows, online forums, YouTube videos, and auctions create a community of enthusiasts who share discoveries, debate values, and trade pieces. In that community, Stories like the 1990 penny worth $210 million spread like wildfire, sparking discussions and arguments, but always keeping people engaged. The myth becomes part of the social glue, a story everyone knows and reacts to, even if they don't fully believe it. And in social settings, the power of belief often matters more than truth. Another psychological factor is what economists call the endowment effect, the tendency to assign more value to things simply because we own them. A coin you find in your pocket feels more special than the same coin in someone else's. Once you own it, it carries your story, your connection. So if someone stumbles upon a 1990 penny and remembers hearing about its supposed $210 million value, they're more likely to believe theirs is special, even if it's common. That belief strengthens their attachment, making them less willing to part with it and more likely to spread the story further. The psychology of rarity is equally important. Humans are fascinated by the rare, the unique, the one-of-a-kind. Scarcity creates desire, and desire creates value. That's why diamonds, rare stamps, misprinted baseball cards, and era coins all command attention and high prices. Even when something is only perceived as rare, the effect can be powerful. The 1990 penny taps directly into this psychology, because the rumor of its rarity is enough to spark desire, regardless of whether most specimens are actually common. The mere possibility that one version. In the world of coins, markets are not just about metal and mint marks. They are about desire, competition, and storytelling. When we look at how values climb into the millions, it becomes clear that the marketplace is a stage where psychology, history, and money collide. Auctions, in particular, are where legends are made. Imagine a room full of collectors, investors, and dealers, all with their eyes fixed on the same coin. The auctioneer calls out bids in rapid fire, each number higher than the last, and suddenly a piece of metal that cost the government just a fraction of a cent to produce sells for millions of dollars. That moment transforms a coin into a headline, and once the headlines spread, the value becomes part of public imagination. We've seen this play out many times. Coins like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, believed by some to be the first silver dollar struck by the U.S. Mint, sold for over $10 million. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, a $20 gold coin never officially released for circulation, fetched nearly $20 million at auction. These staggering figures set the precedent that coins can command prices usually associated with fine art or rare jewels. And every time such a sale happens, it plants the seed in the public mind that maybe, just maybe, the humble penny in their pocket could be another hidden fortune. This is where the 1990 penny enters the conversation. While ordinary examples trade for face value or a small premium, the rumor of a single specimen being worth $210 million leverages the psychology of auctions. People imagine a room of wealthy collectors battling it out, driving the price higher and higher, until an ordinary coin is transformed into a record-breaking sale. In reality, no 1990 penny has sold for that amount, but the possibility of such a scenario is enough to keep people searching, hoping, and dreaming. Because in the auction world, records are made to be broken, and there's always the chance that a surprising sale will rewrite the value of a coin overnight. The market for rare coins is driven by more than scarcity alone. It is also shaped by condition. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating sharper details, fewer marks, and greater eye appeal. A coin graded as mint state 68 or 69, nearly perfect, can be worth exponentially more than one in circulated condition. For the 1990 penny, this means that while billions were struck, the few that survive in pristine, untouched condition could command significant premiums. Add in the possibility of an error, such as a double die or mis-struck planchet, and the value can soar even higher. Auctions magnify these premiums because they create competition, and competition unlocks human pride and determination. Another factor is provenance, the story of who owned the coin before. A penny that once belonged to a famous collector, or that was part of a legendary hoard, carries an aura that increases its appeal. Collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying history. If a 1990 penny were ever discovered in an extraordinary context, such as in a sealed mint bag or as part of a unique era collection, that story could elevate its market value far beyond its baseline. The market feeds on stories as much as on condition or rarity, and stories are what the 1990 penny has in abundance. There's also the role of investors. In recent decades, coins have attracted attention not only from traditional collectors but also from those seeking alternative assets. Gold coins, silver dollars, and high-grade rarities have been treated like blue-chip stocks, stored in vaults and traded at escalating values. For investors, the appeal is twofold. Coins are tangible, unlike digital assets, and they are limited, unlike currency that can be printed endlessly. The 1990 penny, wrapped in its legend of astronomical worth, becomes part of this conversation. Even if most examples are common, the myth of a priceless specimen lures investors into thinking about pennies not as pocket change, but as potential tickets to fortune. The market also thrives on media amplification. Every time a news story breaks about a rare coin selling for millions, search engines light up with people asking what their coins are worth. YouTube videos, social media posts, and blogs spread the excitement further, often blurring the line between fact and exaggeration. The 1990 penny has benefited enormously from this cycle. The claim of a $210 million valuation may not be rooted in a verified auction, but it circulates online as if it were fact, and that circulation keeps the market engaged. It's a perfect example of how myth can fuel market behavior, even when reality is more modest. Yet we should not underestimate how quickly markets can shift. A coin that sells for a few thousand today may sell for hundreds of thousands tomorrow if demand spikes, and then return to modest levels once the frenzy cools. The penny has always been more than just a coin. It is a symbol of humility, of starting small, of the idea that even the tiniest piece of change carries value. The phrase, "a penny saved is a penny earned," reflects a cultural belief in thrift, patience, and accumulation. And yet, when we attach extraordinary stories to the penny, like the claim that a 1990 specimen could be worth $210 million, the symbol transforms. It becomes not just about thrift, but about the possibility that hidden greatness lies in the most overlooked corners of life. That is what makes this story so magnetic. The 1990 penny isn't just metal and minting, it is a metaphor for the idea that anything, even the smallest and most ordinary, can become priceless under the right circumstances. In many ways, this mirrors the American dream. At its core, the dream is about transformation, starting from humble beginnings and rising to unimaginable heights. Immigrants arriving with nothing, workers climbing ladders, entrepreneurs building empires from garage startups. The story of America is the story of the ordinary becoming extraordinary. The penny, the lowest denomination in circulation, carries that spirit in its copper-plated body. And when the myth suggests that one penny could be worth $210 million, it reflects that dream in its purest symbolic form. The message is clear: greatness can hide in plain sight, and fortune can come from the most unexpected place. This symbolism extends beyond America. Around the world, coins have always held cultural meaning. They are used in good luck charms, slipped into shoes for weddings, tossed into fountains for wishes. A coin is never just a coin, it is a vessel for hope, memory, and belief. The 1990 penny story continues that tradition. When people imagine finding one worth hundreds of millions, they aren't just thinking about money. They are imagining luck, destiny, and the universe suddenly smiling upon them. That is why people keep checking their pockets, their jars, their drawers, not just because of the chance at wealth, but because of what that chance represents. And there is another layer: resilience. Pennies are tough. They get dropped, scraped, corroded, stepped on, and yet they survive. They keep circulating for decades, carrying the date of their birth like a badge. A 1990 penny could still be out there in circulation today, passing from hand to hand unnoticed. That resilience is part of what makes it so powerful as a cultural symbol. It reminds us that no matter how small or overlooked we may feel, we too can endure, we too can carry our story forward, and perhaps one day, we too can be recognized for the hidden worth we carry. When people gather around stories like the $210 million penny, they are participating in more than a market trend. They are participating in a shared myth. Myths are not lies. They are stories that carry meaning beyond literal fact. Whether or not a penny truly sold for hundreds of millions is less important than the way the story inspires people to look, to hope, to believe. Myths give life color, and they keep traditions alive. The myth of the 1990 penny will continue to circulate because it satisfies something deep within us: the need to believe that treasures can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment of discovery. And so, when we think about this little coin, struck in Denver in 1990, we see more than just copper and zinc. We see history, psychology, economics, and culture converging. We see the human instinct to collect, the thrill of auctions, the allure of rarity, the dream of transformation. We see how a rumor can ignite imagination, how imagination can fuel markets, and how markets can create legends. We see a mirror of ourselves, our hopes, our ambitions, our belief in possibility. The 1990 penny is, at the end of the day, both ordinary and extraordinary. Billions were minted, yet stories elevated beyond measure. Most are worth only face value, but one, in myth and imagination, has been assigned a value of $210 million. That paradox, the tension between the common and the priceless, is what keeps us fascinated. It keeps us searching drawers, sifting through jars, peering at dates with magnifying glasses. Because deep down, we want to believe. We want to believe that fortune can smile on anyone, that miracles hide in the everyday, that greatness can be found in the smallest of things. And so, the story endures. Long after the coins have tarnished and long after today's collectors have passed their treasures on, the legend of the 1990 penny will still be told. It will still inspire new generations to look closer at what they hold in their hands. It will still remind people that the world is full of hidden value, waiting to be discovered. And it will still whisper the timeless truth that sometimes, the most extraordinary